Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Volume 8, Chapter 4 of RWBY. So, last episode focused entirely on Ruby's team and their journey into, doing what they need to get the Coliseum going. So they break into the place. Everything seems to be going well. They're using May's semblance well. They're going through. Penny helps. Even Pietro helps a bit by hacking into Penny, which, actually a good thing here, as bad as it sounds. But then Ironwood finds out, because Ironwood has been utilizing Watts. He's having Watts work for him to help him find a way to stop Penny, because Ironwood sees Penny, having the maiden powers as a threat to his plans, which, kind of are, to be fair, but they should be, and yeah. Watts is kind of like being forced to work. He has guns pointed at him at all times, so... Plus, to be fair, he does want to actually take down Penny himself because of his own beef with Pietro and everything. So he's willing to help, I guess. But it's more the fact that Ironwood is, resorting to that. That's the issue here. They end up getting what they need done, but on the way out, they are confronted by the remaining Aesopes. Most of them are locked in the room while Penny is confronted by the Aesopes. Penny has a fight and manages to overcome them most of the time, but eventually does get caught in Marrow's semblance. Right as they're about to capture her, though, Nora, back inside the room, absorbs the electricity from the door and uses it to smash their way out, saving Penny in the process. So at that point, with help from Watts and Ironwood, they manage to put forth a new plan. Instead of just trying to capture Penny, they take one of her swords, ripping it straight out of the string, connecting it to her back. And with what Watts said afterwards, it's implied that they're probably going to try to use it to somehow take her over, which is a very bad thing for multiple reasons. But last episode did focus entirely on that stuff, which means we still have not gotten a continuation from episode 2, from chapter 2, in which we saw the Hound taking Oscar and the rest of Yang's team following. So there's still that plot point we have to get back to, and hopefully we will in this episode. Because I really want to know what's going to happen with that. Because even if Salem is successful and the Hound does bring Oscar to her, why, the worst thing she could do, of course, would be to kill him. But I don't think she would at this point, because she has the relic and she has no idea how to use it. And at this point, I'm thinking she's not going to be as patient as she has been. So I'm thinking that she might torture him, but she wants to keep him alive, so she can find out how to use the relic at this time. That's my guess, at least. But that's all provided if this actually succeeds and Oscar is taken to her. Because Oscar's not going to reveal anything, and Ozpin definitely won't. We'll have to see how it goes. We'll have to see. And we also had Crow and Robin, who are planning to break out but we haven't seen anything from that yet. Jacques is in there too, but he's expecting Whitley to get him out, but I don't think that's going to happen. Um, and we've seen little glimpses at both Winter and Harriet, at least, from the Aesops, kind of questioning Ironwood's decisions. We didn't see them actually do that, but we saw them after Ironwood had shot Councilman Slate, and we saw their reactions, even the way they looked at each other. It's like they were clearly not comfortable with what he did there. Um, so there's going to be a lot to really cover in this volume, and I believe it was that this volume takes place only over like a couple days or something. So it's a very short time frame that this volume takes place in. So it's going to be like we know shit is going to go down in this volume. And I mean shit's already going down in this volume. Um this 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 volume started out with shit going down, which I mean I appreciate because it's not wasting any time, especially with what's going on. It shouldn't be. But yeah, I don't know where this is going to go at this point. Excuse me. I still predict that someone's going to die. I definitely think that Ironwood is going to die, but someone besides him, I still think is going to die. Whether it's a main character or not, I don't think it's going to be a member of Team RWBY, but maybe a member of Team Orange. That's possible, as much as I don't want it to happen. Especially with the shit going down with Ren and Nora, I'm really afraid it might be one of them. And honestly, I'm leaning more towards Ren. Um, I don't think it's going to be Oscar, and I definitely don't think it's going to be Penny. I really doubt they're going to kill Penny again. Like, after having brought her back with the amount of fanfare and love that the fans have had after her coming back, it's like they're not going to do this again. Penny will probably get taken over, but she will either remain that way for the time being, or she will go back to normal. One of the two, but she won't die. I think that's. I'm pretty damn positive on that. They're not going to pull that twice. Um, but yeah, we'll see how it goes, and hope for the best. I know nothing about this episode. Like I'm not even getting to this. I'm not even pre-recording this as early as I normally would, and I still know nothing. So people have been, at least people I usually, I guess you could say, follow, have been pretty tight-lipped about this one, which is unusual. Because with the first three chapters of this volume, people talked about it. I avoided spoilers for the most part, but were talking, and I noticed people were talking. But I haven't seen anything, and that means one of two things. I feel either something is happening in this episode that's really big, and people really don't want to spoil it, or not much of anything happens. It's basically like the two polar opposites. Either not much of anything happens where it's just not worth talking about, or something huge happens and they really don't want to spoil it. Which I'm kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just the pessimist side of me, but I'm kind of leaning towards the first option, that nothing much happens, just because I feel like the RWBY fandom isn't as considerate as other fandoms with spoilers, based on what I've seen. Based on what I've seen throughout the years since I started watching RWBY and stuff, they don't mind spoiling people at all. Like they really don't. In fact, like even Rooster Teeth themselves don't give a shit about that. Like the fact that they still do the entire shit with like releasing it a week early for people while everyone else has to wait is like proof of that. But anyways, not going to get into all of that mess right now. So yeah, I know nothing about what's to happen here at all. I haven't even seen anyone talking about it one way or the other, and I can only guess at what could happen, and I could only hope at what we can see. So we'll just have to see for ourselves what this episode entails. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, before anything, I want to mention this because I mentioned this at the end of the reaction. For those who didn't know, there was a contest that Rooster Teeth held to create a brand new Grimm. And I don't know everything about the winner or any of the participants at all, but the winner was apparently, I think, something called a silverfish or something like that. Again, I don't know all the details behind it at all, but it's supposed to appear at some point during this volume. That's all I know. I don't even know what it looks like offhand. I might have seen a picture of it at one point, but I don't remember. So that might be coming. That might be what's about to come at them. But let's talk about this episode either way. So there's a few little points that we touched on here. Let's go with kind of each grouping, you could say. First off, we have Crow and Robin. So Robin's kind of trying to lighten the mood while they're in their cells. She's telling stories about the happy huntresses and trying to get Crow to lighten up a little bit because of how depressed he's been and everything. And she does get a chuckle out of him. She does. But we can see that they're trying to like calm down to think rationally about things and figure out what to do here. Like, there's even a conversation that goes on with Harriet about just everything going on. And you can see Harriet actually has a moment where she's almost about to take Robin up on her offer and go with Robin's semblance. And by the way, I fully think that Robin would have done that if that were the case, that she wouldn't have just attacked her and tried to escape. I do think Robin would have used her semblance there and tried to convince Harriet. But we see that Harriet is questioning things. She's not fully there by any means, but she started to question things, and I really like that. And let's go into details what I said in the reaction. I mentioned, like, I especially liked because it was her. Because out of all of the Aesops, Harriet was definitely the most militantly loyal. Like, yeah, the others were loyal. Elm, Vine, Clover, they were all super loyal. Marrow was the one who was kind of teetering already. He was the one who didn't even want to fight. Unlike the others. The others were a lot more willing to fight Team RWBY in all last volume. But Marrow was definitely more on the edge. He definitely has shown a lot more willingness to listen. Let's put it that way. Even though he does still believe in Ironwood and does still have that loyalty. But Harriet has definitely been the most militant with her loyalty. We saw how violently angry she was when she felt Team RWBY betrayed them. We saw that she was basically saying things like, I had you pegged right from the start, something along those lines. And it's like she kind of was acting like she expected this, like she knew they couldn't be trusted and stuff. So to see her, of all of them, be the one to turn around and start having these doubts before any of the others, outside of, again, Marrow, it means the most. It means more than if you had it happening with Elm or with Vine. Like, even in the end, Clover didn't even have those doubts. Like, you could kind of say maybe when he wished Crow luck before he died, he was kind of like turning over, but I don't think he was. I don't think that was the case. No, I think he stayed loyal to the end. And Yeah, and again, it matters most because of how militant about it she was. So showing her having these doubts, especially after seeing Councilman Slate shot and killed, it makes the difference here. But I also like what they did with Crow in this episode specifically, like not only just showing his depression and showing how how down he's gotten over all of this, especially because of how he felt he could actually get close to someone for once, which very much fuels the ship, which I'm fine with. I actually kind of shipped them myself, but either way, it adds a lot more to him and really makes us sad over what's happened. Um, but it's good to see it, and it's good to see him like acknowledging this and wanting to, kind of, I guess you could say, move past it in a way. You know what I mean? Um, but then we also had touching back on with uh, Yang's side of the team as they've split up. Yang, Jean, and Ren chasing after the Hound, who has Oscar. The chase is really cool. It's a really great action scene. It's fun seeing how they all work together. Jean launching Ren up into the air to get a better vantage point to attack the Hound, try to take him down and save Oscar. Seeing like when Jean's his rider, his motorbike, whatever you want to call it, is ruined thanks to the Sentinel. You see, like, he takes advantage of that moment and makes sure that Yang can pick him up, and she does without question, without hesitation. They just work together so excellently at this point, and it's great to see that. But unfortunately, the Hound does get away, which I will touch on the Hound stuff in a moment. But in the meantime, Yang's bike also took a tumble, and so now they're left without any real transport at the moment and have to kind of walk their way back to Mantle in defeat. They end up making it to what basically amounts to as a shed. It does have heating, but it's basically a shed. They make their way back there, and in the middle of their walk, Ren and Yang get into a spat because Ren he's just continuing to get more and more just irritable. I guess that's the best way to put it. So he and Yang have a spat and argue, and Ren goes off on Jean as well and says something he regrets about Jean, cheating his way into Beacon, which he did do, and he admits he did it. He admitted before that he did it. But it was still wrong of Ren to say. It was still wrong to bring that up, especially out of anger. And so now Ren is kind of brooding, as Yang put it. And again, as I said in the reaction, we've seen this coming since last volume. Ren has been like kind of drifting away from everyone else. Not he doesn't hate them or distrust them or anything. He just hasn't been agreeing with their decisions and their choices, and has felt that it's just biting them in the ass. And he's upset about it. He's just upset. And as I said in the reaction, he needs this. He needs to let it out. Because if he keeps bottling it up, that's what caused this outburst in the first place. He needs to let it out and be open and honest about his feelings here, rather than continue to bottle it up and just have it explode. So I actually think it's good that we're having this confrontation, that we're having this just moment of Ren just letting loose. And Jean and Yang understand that he doesn't hate them or anything, but that he's just frustrated. He is just so frustrated with how things have been going, and especially after losing Oscar like that. Meanwhile, let's talk about that. So the Hound successfully captures Oscar. They're unable to get him back, and he flies Oscar up to the whale, which is waiting on the outskirts of Atlas. Um, so we see Oscar reach Salem, and this was easily the one of the best Salem moments in this series. And Salem's had great moments. Salem is one of my favorite characters in the show. She's just such a phenomenal villain, and this was definitely one of her best moments. Her confronting Oscar and the way she kept referring to Oz as Ozma specifically, the tone she was taking, the anger you saw in her when she grabbed Oscar's face like she did, the torture she enacted, as well as letting Hazel come in and enact some torture himself. It's like everything was just so perfectly executed there. Salem was honestly at her most threatening, at her scariest. Like, this is much scarier than when she like freaked out and like yelled and all the windows shattered back a couple volumes ago. This is scarier than when you see her at the end of last volume riding in on Monstra. This is absolutely terrifying because you know the backstory. You know her connection to Oz. So seeing that here, seeing her be that angry for that second she grabs him, listening to the tone of her voice. This actually goes back to something I said last volume. Ironwood last volume asked Oscar if that was Salem's greatest strength, that she doesn't have the humanity to have the fear and everything like that. And my big thing I said at that point was Salem has very much humanity still. She is very much human. She like everything she's doing is based on her humanity, her very human emotions. Yeah, she's been corrupted by the pools of Grimm. That's undeniable. It blatantly told us so. But she's still very much human in her emotions and her mindsets and her vengeance. I mean, she's entirely in the wrong. She's the bad guy for sure. That's unquestionable. But think about it from her side. From her point of view, she worked so hard to defy the gods, to bring him back, to bring Ozma back from the dead. She seeked out the gods twice. And then when that failed, she rallied the entire planet against them, all to bring back her lost love. And when that was taken from her again, she even tried to commit suicide multiple times, as we saw after she was made immortal. Like, everything was going against her in her eyes. Again, she was in the wrong. She was the bad guy there, but still. And then when humanity started again and Oz did return, he betrayed her. In her eyes, he betrayed everything she had worked to bring him back. She had worked so hard to bring him back, and then when she got him back, they started a family. They began to rule over the people. And she views that because of him, because of his actions, she lost everything again. She lost their children. She lost the person that she worked so hard to save. she lost her control, even, and started having to act from the shadows. In her eyes, she's been betrayed by the very person she gave up her quote unquote humanity for. She became a monster for him. And in her eyes, he betrayed her. Which, again, she's still entirely in the wrong, but you can kind of see it from her point of view. You understand her anger at him. And it's like, it's just such a great character. And she's so wonderfully acted. And it was just really good to see. I really enjoyed this scene where she's the way she's speaking to Oscar, even though she knows he's not fully Ozma, that they haven't fully combined. The way she speaks to him, you can hear it in her voice. The voice actress does a phenomenal job. You can hear there's emotion to her voice, not just anger or anything, but you almost kind of feel like she's not as confident as she has been in other lines. Like when she's talking to her lot in volume 4 and 5, in those volumes, you hear this grand confidence. You hear this just pure, just threatening aura to her, pun intended. And it's like just the way she speaks is so commanding. Yet here, where she was speaking to well, Oscar, but still, it wasn't as commanding. It wasn't as powerful, and it's especially notable by the fact that she speaks to Cinder right after and has that more commanding presence at that point. I honestly believe she still loves Oz. I fully 100% believe that. I believe she still loves Oz. And that if Oz, for whatever reason, truly would be willing to take her back, I think that she might consider it. I don't think she would act upon it exactly, but still. But yeah, as I said, she does end up talking to Cinder right after, because after all the torture and the discussion with Oscar, she heads out, and that's when she's confronted by Cinder. Cinder once again asks, it's like, I want to go do what I'm going to do. I want to go capture the maiden and shit. And like, Salem's like, bitch, you're staying here. Don't fight me on this. And the Hound even gets grumpy with her when she continuously tries to bring it up. But then afterwards, you see Cinder like, oh, I'm leaving anyway, bitch. I mean, she doesn't say it to Salem, but she's like, I'm leaving anyway. Come on, Neo. And Neo's just like kind of, without saying anything, arguing with her about it. But then Emerald comes in. And Emerald's like, yeah, I'll do it. If Neo won't go, I'll go. And Cinder seems to take her up on that offer, so that's going to come into play. Now, the very beginning of this season, of this volume, showed who I still assume is Cinder, scrubbing the floors. So I still think we're going to get Cinder's backstory this season, this volume. And this might be leading towards that, which means, in my eyes, one of two things. Either she's going to be redeemed, which I don't think is going to happen, or she's going to die. And I might be wrong. It might be some other option, but that's what I'm guessing here. And if Cinder is one of the characters to die this volume, honestly, I hope that they send her out well, at least. As much as I dislike her character, I don't want her to go out with a fizzle. I don't. That would be just anticlimactic and at this point just not entertaining. Even though I don't like her, I at least want her to go out in a good way. At least make like when she should have died before, when she lost to Raven, that was a good way to go out. But still, not getting into all that again. I've talked enough about that in the past. But yeah, so now she and Emerald and maybe Neo, it's kind of unclear, are going to go, if Neo's going to end up going with them or not. But they're going to go out and defy Salem. So that's going to be fun to see how that ends up going. Um, and then Ruby's team, minus Penny, who had gone off to help with the Amity Tower and all, they go to the Schnee Mansion, of all places. And we get to see Whitley again, who's just kind of being a grumple puss. He's not even being angry or too, like, high and mighty at the moment. He's just being grumpy. It's like, oh, haven't you done enough? And everything. And it's like, mother's, like, locked herself in her room. And it's like, he's just being grumpy. But it very much implied last volume that he is probably going to get redeemed. So I guess this is going to at least work into that. But they bring Nora there and everything because she's still hurt after what happened. And they just need to figure out what's going on. They just need to get help and then get her back to normal. Meanwhile, Ruby's been trying to call Yang, but because of everything that's been happening and the fact that they're caught out way out there and in the storm and all, they can't exactly respond. Not to mention they're not getting any signal. And so yeah, like, we're at a very low point in the series, not in terms of quality, but in terms of the events unfolding. Things are getting bad. Things are getting dark. And I think that by the end of this volume, we'll have an upswing. Things will start getting good again. But I don't know what's going to happen before that. And one other thing to note that I forgot to mention before, when I was talking about Yang, Jean, and Ren's segment, Yang was like asking Jean, it's like, do you think she'll be upset with me? And everything. And Jean's like, oh, she's your sister. She's going to love you no matter what. And then Yang's like, yeah, Ruby. And it's like, it's very clear she's talking about Blake at that moment because they're on the opposite sides here at the moment. Different viewpoints. But the idea still stands. Blake will still be there for you, for Yang. That's not going to change. They're just arguing. They're having a disagreement about something, but it doesn't mean that they don't love each other still. But I like that they're still showing that they're still having Yang be super worried about Blake and everything. That it's still like they're hammering the point in for those who are still trying to deny it, because there are people who are still trying to deny it. That Blake and Yang are together. Like, I literally had seen people, like, a week before Volume 8 premiered saying things like, when or if Bumblebee is ever canonized. And it's like, are you serious? Are you behind? Or, because it has been canonized. Like, they blatantly said in last volume, they pretty much blatantly said it. When Nora was talking about it to Ren at the dance, at the celebration for Robin's victory, which, you know how that went, but still. Nora was basically saying out loud that it's like, there's something more going on than just friends. The only thing they didn't say, they didn't explicitly say, oh yeah, they're girlfriends now, or oh yeah, like Yang and Blake are clearly together romantically. They didn't, like, they shouldn't have to. It was super obvious at the end of Volume 6. Volume 7 just made it even more heavily obvious, and yet there's still people denying it. So maybe that's why they continue to push it so heavily even now with this. It's like, let's be... That's the thing. That's the thing you think about. The person Yang was thinking about there wasn't her sister. She knew Ruby would be fine, that their relationship would be fine. She was worried about Blake. Like, Come on. Come on. These people are just still so insistent on denying it because they just don't want it to be fact. They don't want to admit that it's canon because it goes against their ships, shipping Blake with Sun or Yang with whoever else. I don't know, really. I don't know who the most popular ship Yang is with, who the most popular person Yang is shipped with is outside of Blake. I don't really know. Either way, point still stands. Um, and it's just like it gets sad after a certain point. But yeah, I did just want to bring that up as well. Either way, this episode gave a lot to talk about. There were quite a few story points being showcased. Um, and even just the fact that Watts was returned to his cell either means that Ironwood got all he needed out of him, or Watts has succeeded. And I don't really like either option, so we'll just kind of have to see where that goes. Or maybe he's just returned to his cell at that point and is going to be brought back out again. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Um, but yeah, this was a great episode. It covered a lot of the story beats that we currently have going this volume, and it's making things more interesting. Honestly, with the last chapter, I haven't watched as many of the reactions as I normally would. I've still got them bookmarked. Like I plan to watch them, I just haven't gotten to them. And it's not that the last episode was bad by any means. It's just I don't know, something about me. It's just I haven't felt like I wanted to get to them as much, get to those reactions. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But either way, this one I definitely feel like I'm going to watch like the reactions a lot quicker for. Um, but tell me your thoughts in the comments below on this episode on Volume 8, Chapter 4 of RWBY. Tell me what you thought of the different plot points and everything. And for now, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Connie, and yeah, for the time being, I'm signing off. So see y'all next time.